Right, so we'll try and get this in for April at some point, and the issue is the exact same as it's always been. It's not changing. It's not getting any better. It's just getting worse and worse. There seems to be no solution. But like I said, they're not deinstitutionalising me whatsoever, and it's just getting progressively worse and worse on a hourly basis. I'm waking up in the morning with my jaw completely locked shut and the back of my skull completely locked shut, with all the control of my own life encapsulated in a dome-like shape, pressing on my internal organs and the back of my skull. So I'm waking up in the morning in a complete, powerless, controlled state, with my entire life snagged and internalised in a controlled state, with my jaw locked shut, with all my apparent power pulled out. So, like I said in the previous video, I have not had a full penis erection now in well over 18 months. It's shrunk significantly because they've stripped out every single bit of my sex power and all my ability to get sexual arousal or sexual interest in women. They've stripped every single bit of my power out and every single bit of my internal sex drives and internalised it. So they've stripped out my physical sex drives or sex power. It's catastrophic, obviously. I blatantly said now, without any doubts whatsoever, that I'm incapable of engaging in sex completely, indefinitely. And they're not pulling this out. They're not pulling the institutional self out. So if this, like I've just said, there's nowhere to lie now, progressively on an hourly basis, my jaw is getting tighter shut and the controlled state's getting worse and worse, clamping down, and the controlled state getting worse and worse hourly, costing me every single day of my life, like it has done for years. And despite what I tell them, or however I make these videos and complain about it, they're not addressing it. So they're not acknowledging it as having any issues or whatever else. They're saying they're not acknowledging it as having any problems. So that being said, they're not addressing it. They're not classing it as having any issues. They're saying it's getting worse and worse. So unless they start classifying this as a problem, which they never have done because I've told them this on license, so they're not classifying this as any issue. They're not classifying or labelling this as a problem. They don't even know what this is in the probation office when I've spoke to them. So the probation service don't know what it is. I've made all these videos now. These videos are going on for 6 years plus. The complaints are going on for 10 years plus. And no matter how much I tell them I'm institutionalised, or how much of my power is being stripped out and it's costing me every day, they don't know what that is. So they don't know what this is. They're completely unaware of what this problem is. But I'm not, because I'm losing every single day of my life while they're doing it. So unless they start actually taking responsibility for what they're doing, or taking liability, which they're not doing, then I can't do anything. And it's blatantly obvious to me now that they will never take any accountability because of the catastrophic effect it's having on a daily basis. Crippling breaking sessions into my sex power and stripping it out all day round the clock. Crippling, degrading round the clock on an hourly basis, stripping my power out with crippling internal breaking sessions. So it's quite clear to me, I've told them it's a war of attrition. And I've lived on the streets now for nearly 3 years. And it's just getting worse and worse. And I told them this would have been the case years ago. And it'll just get worse and worse because they keep stripping power out, my jaw locked shut, to create a full controlled state. I've been in prison and seen some of the controlled states in the basement in Moorlands, or in the special wing in Moorlands, and it's one of the worst. It's still got like a feeling or an ethos or the remnants of the World War, or when they had concentration camps and they were the zombies and drone-like states meandering around, hanging around in a powerless, brain-dead state with their entire life encapsulated. And that's what Moorlands prison's like in Doncaster, where they've institutionalised people or apparent criminals and internalised the power into a controlled state, so they just leave them in keep possession of a select group of human beings, to essentially keep possession of human beings, a group of people like they did 100 years ago. That's outdated. So it's been outdated by nearly 100 years. What they're doing is there's still a feeling of that, because my jaw's completely locked shut, wired shut, causing pain and agony. I'm waking up every day without any power or control over my own life in a full controlled state. And it's the exact same as what you see in Moreland's prison's basement, where they've stripped the power out, internalised it into a controlled state, and keeping possession of human beings in a controlled state with their entire life out institutionalised. If that's still going on now, in 2026, and for me, it's just, that's outdated by 100 years. It's been outdated since World War II. But they don't acknowledge this. They don't acknowledge it whatsoever. They believe that they're entitled to do it. Criminal. They're going into people's power because they're criminals and they're entitled to it, stripping their entire sex power out of their entire life. As I've said in other videos, I've never been arrested for anything in relation to sex crimes my entire life. So I've not got any sexual convictions, anything like that. Never been arrested or charged with anything of that nature. However, they've gone into my apparent criminal power and stripped all my sex power out or ability to feel sexual arousal in society. I've never been convicted or even charged with anything of a sexual nature in relation to that. So they do what they want in the institutional self and strip out what they want. And to be quite honest, it's still to this day, I've still not